Hey gang, I found this delightful essay exploring a question we seldom even get to. Headline: Diversity, a Civilizational Nightmare. Posted on February 25, 2016 by Fred Reed. A tribulation of following the news, is the desperate peddling it would appall an Amway salesman of diversity, said to be our strength. Oh. Exactly why it is our strength, is never specified. It seems to have brought no benefit beyond crime, rape, and genital mutilation. While the desirability of these advances is beyond dispute, it nonetheless seems to me that diversity has minor drawbacks worthy of consideration. So, brothels and cisterns, let us look at some of the resplendent marvels of diversity, and the onward march of human betterment and happiness, attendant thereunto. What have been the relations between, in Germany, Germans and Muslims; in Canada, frogs, Anglos and Indians; in the US, blacks, whites, browns, and Muslims; in Sri Lanka, Tamils and Sinhalese; in Sweden, Swedes and Muslims; in Ireland, Prots and Catholics; in Rwanda, Hutus and Tutsis, or maybe Tutus and Hutsis; in India, Hindus and Muslims among others; in Israel, Jews and Arabs; in France, French and Muslims; in Sudan, Muslims and Christians; in South Africa, Xhosa, Bantus and whites; in Iraq and elsewhere, Shias and Sunnis; in Xinjiang, Chinese and Muslims; in Spain, Basques, Catalans and the rest; in Germany, Jews and Germans; in Turkey, Turks and Armenians and Kurds; in Iceland, Muslims and Christians, Sunnis and Shias; in Indonesia, Indonesians and Chinese; in Holland, Dutch and Muslims. Most of these happy proximities have produced bloodbaths, actual genocide or attempts at it, forced migration as when Uganda threw out its Indians, mass butchery by machete as in Rwanda, repeated bombings in London, and such like exuberances. Other disasters are still only in the simmering stage. Americans are among those being simmered. From which one might conclude that diversity is the principal cause of human unhappiness, mightn't one? In America the pattern holds. We are seeing serious and increasing racial attacks by blacks on whites, and the looting of shopping malls, that has now become traditional, like picnics on the 4th of July, hunting and gathering. The importation of Muslims is reaching the point at which they can become the grave and irremediable problem that they are everywhere else. The growing Hispanic population causes friction, particularly in the Southwest, and provokes cries for expulsion. Lay the blame where you will, on white racists, black racists, racists of whatever color, on God, or genes or sunspots. But reflect, though, on how very much of the trouble reported daily in the news arises from diversity. For example, achievement gaps, suspension rates in schools, rapes, honor killings, shootings by police, shootings of blacks by blacks, complaints of discrimination, interracial gang beatings, affirmative action, mass demonstrations, actual terrorism, shootings of cops, demands for censoring of books and the removal of statues, and the renaming of highways. Diversity is by a wide margin the worst nightmare facing the U.S. All of which would suggest even to the birds of the air, the kine of the fields, to box turtles and retarded marmosets, and the alert among the great apes, that diversity is a terrible idea. Mix different kinds of people and you get trouble. In politics, diversity also grates. Those most afflicted by the twin scourges of liberalism and conservatism despise each other and do not willingly associate. Feminists and men, city slickers and rednecks, dogs and cats all hate each other. So what should America's response be? Isn't it obvious? Yes. It's so clear. We should import more weird, backward, dull-witted, useless, and unassimilatable civilizational disasters, many of which have produced nothing more technologically challenging than the pointed stick. What could be a better idea? And once we've got them, there's no getting rid of them. It is currently considered good manners to regard all cultures as equally meritorious, but let us see this idea as what it is, perhaps good manners, but political idiocy. Suppose that Jimmy Joe McQuiliker, in Lost Hope, Tennessee, genitally mutilated his daughters, refused to let them go to school, forced them to wear funny black bags, didn't let them go out alone, made them marry smelly elderly Pakistanis against their will, and killed them if they weren't virgins. That's equal to what? But that's what we are importing, boys and girls. And if you don't think this 13th century nightmarish subhumanism is just peachy, why, you are Islamophobic. As any decent person would be. But here we come to the heart of the matter. Fairy tales. The foundation of American political thinking, if that is quite the word, is that we should all love one another and therefore do, when in fact all of us don't, and those who say we should, carefully avoid those, who they think, the rest of us should love. Simple declarative sentences are the soul of good writing. It might be a good idea for us to use such minor rational capacity as we have, to avoid doing stupid things that will have a heavy price. The world is what it is, not what we want it to be. Mixing even civilized peoples is not a good idea. Put 30 million Japanese in America, or Americans in Japan, and trouble will result. This, even though the Japanese are an advanced and well-behaved people, and Americans are reasonably close. But Somalis, for God's sake. Syrians. The human animal is hardwired to be hostile to other groups, to strangers, to intruders. It is the dog pack instinct. This limbic paranoia manifests itself all through life. If a Russian recon plane comes near the United States, the Air Force frantically scrambles fighters to go intercept it, though the likelihood that Russia would send an ancient prop job to attack the US is zero. When a strange dog passes in front of our house, our three mutts dash to the front fence to bark in witless territorial fury. They lack the hands to be pilots, though. When people have no cause for conflict, they invent it. For this we have football teams in which armored felons having no connection to us, attack somebody else's felons and we become deeply involved emotionally. In the cities, street gangs, often though not always of different races, fight for territory as idiotically as countries. Always it is us and them, and we can always find thems. Movies are largely about forces of good, that's us against forces of bad, that's them. Diversity. Oh, spare me. And I will only add to this charming essay, that the promoters of diversity, Zionist-inspired left-wing academics, well know all of the above, and that's precisely why diversity is so heavily promoted, by those wanting to maximize acrimony to destroy civilization.